Worldwide deaths in 2011, 9 million people because of hunger, especially children. Tens of thousands of citizens because of wars. $672 people because of official death penalties. In 1 year, cities produce more than 15 million deaths. Uncontrolled urbanization is the cause of at least 80% of premature deaths. 0.03% of these deaths occurred because of death penalties declared by states. The work of the United Nations to fight against hunger, stop wars, abolish the death penalty and other actions expresses itself through sectorial approaches. The city includes most of the hardships of individuals that end with death and desperation. The city is the real killer, far more than the death penalty. The city, from the highest expression of human creativity, is now the real catalyst of death. Humanity, nations, states, do not seem to have the full awareness of the serious worldwide crisis of cities and megalopolis are in. Urbanization grows exponentially, favored and unopposed, with the effect of catalyzing the degenerative processes of urban organizations already underway. The sectorial approach is no longer necessary. The current urban history dictates different rules. The United Nations are requested to find a solution to the problem of the city crisis. It is the city that fuels its inner space, many and very dangerous hotbeds that concern social processes, as well as the economic, environmental, urban, security and health processes. Since 2009, at the closing of the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York, the Della Rocca Foundation, with the great support of the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has focused attention on the problem of the crisis of the interethnic city. Yet the UN, it seems, has not given the necessary support to the needs of the urban world. And yet, the majority of the global population lives in the city and urbanization grows exponentially. By 2050, cities will be receiving 70% of the people of the planet. However, cities occupy only 4% of the global space, consuming 75% of global resources. It is a delirium. We request the UN to set a target to create, plan and experiment, together with all those who have wanted, want or will want to unite and share the challenge, and a proposal able to fight all these dramatic urban problems and to define all the specificities according to the diversities of history and culture. Making the highest levels of consensus of nations aware of the existence of a very serious crisis and of its destructive power will be a first and very important step. And the Unhabitat and Alliance of Civilizations, with their competence and their sensitiveness, are the most suitable means. To act is the absolute priority. There is no time left to waste. The declarations of principles issued by the UN General Assembly and what the Unhabitat and Alliance of Civilizations have accomplished are a cornerstone of ethics, civilization, and cohabitation among people, nations and states. They are the sign of perception by the community of the states of the big problems that plague the world and the principles that should lead to them being solved. The unstoppable process of urbanization of global population has brought the element of crisis into the cities, megalopolis, and metropolis of the planet to a critical point. The safe, functional, beautiful city is the people's right. The need for this right to be recognized, declared, and implemented is being felt more and more. The Unhabitat Alliance of Civilizations, International Organization for Migration, with the support of some states and the European Council, started actions to create a more general consensus on the need to reach a declaration of the United Nations on the right to the inter-ethnic and shared city. The Della Rocca Foundation, directed by Professor Corrado Beguino, has promoted and organized the contribution of a scientific community, which is particularly careful with the issues pertinent to the city crisis. He has formulated planning suggestions, deriving from multidisciplinary studies and analyses which have generated hypotheses for remedies and a series of initiatives as a support for the next experimentation. The Foundation has offered the product of years of research, starting from a series of events that includes countries and supranational institutions in a common plan on the interethnic city for coexistence and civil development of all peoples. 5 events characterized the path. First event, New York, the United Nations, September 2009. Second event, Rio de Janeiro, in the ambit of the Third Forum of Alliance of Civilizations, May 2010. Third event, Rome, Campidoglio, International Conference of the Interethnic City, June 2011, with the participation of the Secretary of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. Fourth event, New York. Round Table, the Interethnic City Management and Policies for a Better Integration of Migrants, organized by the permanent representatives of Italy and Canada to the UN, with the Alliance of Civilizations and the International Organization for Migration. The Foundation presented the vademecum that should be the subject of one of the initiatives for the realization of the handbook for the planning experimentation, September 2011. Fifth event, Rome, Link Campus University, March 2012. Preparatory meeting of the scientific community for the World Urban Forum of the Unhabitat in Naples, September 2012. The growing distance that separates city and society corresponds to an incremental separation between the city of stone, whose roots are in the historical culture of places, and the city of abstract immaterial relations, globalized and globalizing, that surrounds and permeates everything. The consequence of this is the break of balanced and shared correspondence of the relation between space and time. The crisis is produced by the projection outside the historical genesis of equity value that has always related the space of life of human societies to the perceptions that they had of time. Before, after, and where, in the new virtual territories, they lose their anthropological meaning. The life of the urban body has reached unsustainable costs compared to the real income it produces. The diversities that constitute it, that is, in the most varied meaning of men and things, produce conflict instead of representing a resource, generating many problems, among which the insecurity of urban living. This state of things is at the basis of the growing entropy that defines the urban system, which is characterized more and more by a growing level of disorder. Degradation and functional disorganization of the city coincide with the metamorphosis of the formal value of places that now lack stable identities and therefore multiply their semantic attributes. The contemporary city, in its undetermined extension, is unable to communicate meaning and values. The cities of the planet are living one of the most dramatic and dynamic episodes in history. The largest human concentration are to be found in very poor areas, which are becoming more and more widespread. The multiracial reality, result of many migrations, characterizes the big cities of the planet. It is this large number of people and the diversity of cultures that prevents the traditional ways of coexistence from working. There are large social rifts which occur in how people live. There are problems of environmental technology common to all the inhabitants, but no common language for religious culture, for political culture, and not even for ethics. For an architecture coexistence to take place, a complete environment must make itself visible. That is, it must acquire meaning. The recovery of the group must be connected to the recovery of the single objects. This has to follow a process based upon both a reorganization of the complex of city functions and of their operative cycles, and upon the research of principles which regulate the architectonic language. A wise introduction of new knowledge and new technologies in the process of reorganization of city activities and services will make it possible to carry out actions of recovery and of creation of meaning. Here, stability must compete with the speed of change, which has become the new vision of the world. The awareness of the deepest causes of the crisis, both in the common elements and in the many specificities of different cultures, has to be pursued through a wide-ranging and progressive study process, and by an evaluation that will result in identifying remedies and consequent lines of action in order to pursue them. The Organization of the United Nations should then provide for taking charge of those concrete initiatives that only at that level can have a worldwide dimension and involve in this process all the subjects and the different realities that want to take part. To promote this project, the Della Rocca Foundation has identified 6 goals: to generate a cultural revolution on the theme of the urban crisis, to entrust the UN with the leadership of the whole program, to involve intercontinental intelligentsia, to encourage young scholars in order to guarantee the duration of the program, to involve the Nobel laureates, to pursue in the fruitful and continuing intercultural dialogue on the urban theme. 3 operative initiatives refer to these goals: the Manifesto, competition on the inter-ethnic city; the Handbook, to find out about the different situations in which the cities find themselves; the activation of education processes characterized by different technical scientific profiles who are able to face the challenges posed by the city crisis. The Della Rocca Foundation is involving the associations of the Nobel laureates. In the same way as the Manifesto by Marinetti launched Futurism and the Athens Charter founded the contemporary architecture, the Intercontinental Manifesto competition of ideas has to generate a cultural devolution on the urban theme. After the great events in New York, Rio de Janeiro and Rome, where the Foundation presented the UN with its accomplished work and future goals, the Urban Forum in Naples could be the starting point of its application. The operative program is ready, 30 months of work to publish the competition. A scientific coordinator will manage all the research activities. A project manager will manage the actions. 3 experts of monitoring and evaluation will verify the results of each step. A strategic plan of communication will be the real strength point of the program. The idea behind the initiative will be communicated to every headquarters in every country by means of a general message and specific messages. To generate a cultural revolution on the urban theme. The United Nations, that has maintained the theme of human rights, are expected to complete this fundamental journey, facing the theme of right to the city. The hope is that the willingness to act of the United Nations, with the experience, the skills, and the support of the Unhabitat and Alliance of Civilizations, will transform the suggestions of an integrative amendment of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights into reality in favor of the right of the city. It is hoped that this will lead on to a global initiative. We are convinced that the commitment of the UN General Secretary Ban Ki-moon, the constant action of the Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Giulio Terzi di Sant'Agata, former head of the Italian representative to the UN, and the continuous and precious support of Vincenzo Scotti, former Undersecretary of State, may be a significant guarantee for the good result of the initiative. The Della Rocca Foundation declares its full willingness, along with that of the scientific community that identifies in what has been accomplished so far, to sustain and support all the actions that these high supranational systems will be willing to take on. 6th event, Naples, Unhabitat World Urban Forum, September 2012. Pursuing the goal of a UN declaration for the right to the city, it is now time to turn theory into action, involving decision makers from all levels, local, national, international, with a clear and long-sighted view of the objective and of the itinerary. The Undersecretary of State, Staffan de Mistura, has confirmed the commitment and the willingness of the Italian government to support the initiative, with the fundamental participation of other countries. The right to the city is the maturest of all rights. It goes across them. It includes all of them, and it feeds itself with them. Such a right must be considered and built up carefully, laying down the foundation for future civilizations. It represents the condition by which peace is considered. Peace with memory, peace with the present, and peace with the future.